Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a new Direction podcast. On today's episode, we may have Brother Kufre.
Good morning to you all.
I have Brother Camillus.
Good morning.
I also have Brother Savior,
Good morning.
Sister Yuti,
Good morning, everyone.
and I myself am Brother David. On today's episode, we'll be talking about the phrase "born again." Well, where we are speaking from, we actually say it this way, that we should give our lives to Christ, or we should give our life to Christ, and that's what we have tagged being born again to mean. So on today's episode, that's what we'll be talking about. But we have a voice note that would give us some kind of insight into what it actually means. That's that phrase, what it actually means and who it implies to.
Yes.
Remember, we always say the issues we raise here are as it relates to the concept of the Spirit.
Of God.
Yeah, so definitely everything we talk about and the perspective, the angle from which we approach everything we talk about is from that concept of the Spirit. So that voice note would give us a bit of clarity as what born again means, who it implies to as it relates to that concept of the Spirit. So let's hit play so we can get into what we have for our viewers today.
Hello out there, people of the world. Listen to this counsel that I've got for you, so it could help you caution yourself on your ill-fated errors. This might most specifically be suitable for those who practice Christianity or who have taken Christianity as a religion and therefore has this as a common practice or perhaps a common expression amongst themselves. The expression is, "Are you born again?" But that's no question you ask anybody. That's not a man's question. That is a God question. That's not a man question. And every human person is a product of man, not God. It is until God has made you, that is when you become a product of God. For now, every human person, from the source of the Spirit that originated them, is a product of man. And that's the constitution of the human person. That's the foundation of the human person. And that foundation was made to operate in error on purpose. It's according to purpose, designed to first operate in error. So everything that you operate is in error. So the divine program was actually made to wait until God comes to make man. And it's in making man that you see what is evident about what God has made. So the question of, are you born again? You hear that common with those who practice Christianity, or let's say who identify with Christianity. And by extension, it seems to also apply to people who, though they don't identify with Christianity, but seem to believe that if you have to identify with God, that is a nature that you must have, you must develop. But that is not a nature that is meant to be developed by any man. So it's not a man question. It's not a question you ask any man. It's not a human question. It's a God question. And it's not a question you also can ask God. You can't ask God, are you born again? When you meet God. No, you can't ask him, even when he's a person like you, knowing that he is God. But what does that question imply? What is the spiritual implication of that expression? What is the spiritual significance of that expression? I want to explain it. It is not a significance that applies to everybody. It only applies to one person, and that person is God. The reason is this: because for God to be in the midst of the people and save them, he has to be born in their midst. He definitely has to be born, just like every other human person is born. because that's the mystery of the Spirit that programs everything, generates everything, runs everything, initiates everything. So he has to cause the birth of God to happen just as the birth of every other man after the original creation from the start. So, because God has to be born in the midst of the people, in the midst of their existence, after humanity has been already existing for many, many, many centuries, they are now a multitude. They have now replenished the whole earth. So they need God to be born in their midst. If you remember the origin of man, you would now know that the birth of man is not actually that he was born. He was dead. So the fact that he imputed sin is the significance of death from the starting of man. So every man that is born as man, human being, as man, the spirit of man, is dead. But the word death is scary to use at the birth of a child. So you don't go there. They didn't allow you to use it. But that is the situation of what happens. That is what happens. Every child that drops is dead. And the evidence of that death from the start of that drop is at the end where something happens to anybody and he's gone. He's gone. And so you still repeat that word at the end of it, that he's dead. But he was dead from the beginning. So what happened at that point is not death, it's sleep out of death. That sting of sleep is because of the presence of death in a person. But with God, that child, when he is born, he is born. He is the only one that will be born. Every other child's arrival is not being born. It's being dead. Every other human birth is being dead. But the birth of the body of God as a child born from a human womb, because it will be a spiritual engineering of that birth, which even the one carrying the child would not know. Even the household that is birthing that child may birth that child in the midst of other children, but they will not know that that is God. So the mystery in that child is that he is born. So that is the only birth that you have in a generation because of the divine program, that you say he is born. But because he is born like every other human child, he's an infant child, he's a baby, he would grow up naturally. It's a natural process. He would grow up, but he is holy even as you see him. He would not be identified to events, spectacular kind of events, because he's hidden. It is like a thief in the night that has arrived. So he has arrived like a thief in the night quietly to make sure he grows to become of age before he starts the consciousness of being shown what he is born for, which will also be a quiet divine program. And by the time the time is due, it will be shown to a few persons who will now begin to spread the news, which is where we have gotten to right now. But to finish with that analysis, I want to show you that when that child is born in the midst of the people as God, he is the only one that is born. So that's the first birth of being born, because he is God. Every other one is being dead. Then when he grows to become of age, while the Spirit has been waiting, which is in the form of the Word, to merge with him, once he is of age and it becomes that point at which the Spirit merges with him, that is the point you now say he is born again. He is born again. It's a spiritual process. It's not a language description. It's a spiritual process that is going on in a human person, in a body. So that period is when you see in John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word. So the Word was there without God. And then the Word was with God. So there comes the point where God is born without the Word, waiting to be of age before the Word will now join with him. and then we'll now have eventually in the end of the process, which is now still running, God with us. So understand this perspective. You cannot meet such a man and ask him, are you born again? When you meet God, would you ask him, are you born again? And God will not ask you, are you born again? Because that is not for you. So the counsel you should be able to give to yourself, the caution you should give to yourself by reason of this counsel is actually share with one another if you have come across this understanding as you are hearing this voice, that expression, are you born again, is not a human question, it's a God question. And it's not as well a question you ask God. And therefore, if it is not what you can ask God, why take what is for God to attribute to men? So to God is the only one that is born again, and because of his capacity to make others to get life, everyone dead will come out as resurrection. So every man is subject to resurrection. Only God is subject to being born again. I'll say that again as a statement of fact that you should keep and have. Every other human person is subject to being resurrected from the slumber of the death of sin. It is only God who is subject to being born again, and it's a spiritual process. No man can do that.
Okay, we have all listened to it, and it's strange what we have been doing in the name of being born again. The idea of being born again, the application of being born again, because growing up, I didn't have any kind of idea about what being born again meant, because of the kind of religion, or will I say, well, I'm not say religion, but the kind of church setting I was involved with. So in our church setting, there was no such hammering. Be born again. Are you born again? Or give your life to Christ. So I remember being in a situation back in school when someone asked me, are you born again? I said, I don't know. I don't understand what it means. I don't understand the application of that term being born again. So she rephrased and asked me if I've given my life to Christ. And at the same time, I was more confused. I was like, I don't understand what it means to give your life to Christ. Because in my own set, that wasn't what we were taught. We were taught to come to mass. You practice the sacraments, at least 5 of the 7 of them. Those were the teaching we are given. But down the line, I became exposed to that idea of being born again and giving one's life to Christ because of the people I was now associated with. And the whole idea of that was that to be born again, one needs to start living his life in a way that would please God.
Yes.
That's what we understood what it meant to be born again.
Yes.
But as time went on, now in this process or in this program, I've gotten to realize something, that it is not possible for someone to do anything that will please God when there is no God to let you know what you need to do in order to please him.
Yes.
And basically, you are not even doing anything to please God, because God doesn't need you to please him. But you need to do something to get the life of God. So basically, you are the one who need to do what you need to do to get the life God is coming with. So you are not doing anything to please him. That's by the way. But what we are getting to is the fact that we have all misconceived what it means to be born again. And from the voice notes, it's clear enough for us to see and understand that that phrase, that term doesn't even relate to us.
Yes.
Because remember when we talked about God and how God is introduced as a person in our midst. We made reference to John chapter 1 verse 1, which was also which was also referred to in the audio,
Voice notes.
in the voice note, that God is not that air spirit. That God, first of all, represents the body that would carry that spirit.
Yeah.
Just as man is what we all have been referred to as, but we still have that spirit of man that is driving this body that we still call man. So in the case of God, there is God first as the body that is introduced, but is different from that body of man, and is produced in a way that he is to carry the spirit that is of God.
Yes.
So God, first of all, is that container that would carry the spirit that is of
The word. Let's use the word, because when you use the word, the word.
yeah.
I believe that somebody out there will really understand where we are talking from, because, like what the voice note just put out there, that when you read from John 1:1,
Yeah.
he said that in the beginning
Was the
was the word, and the word was with God. So you see that before the word comes to be with God, the word was on his own,
Yes.
without the God. And he made it clear that the God there is the body,
Yeah.
while the word is the spirit. So it is when the word now met with the body that the work now can begin.
Yeah.
And you can't have that done when a body has not been provided. We have been saying that in this our podcast. Most of the section, I don't think there's any moment that we don't try to point that out, irrespective of what topic that we worked on.
Yeah, that's the
Because
emphasis
it's
of
not
the
about
whole thing.
explaining the topic, it's about letting the people know how God
Has to
need
be
to
with them.
come to be with us, so that the help we all cry for, we can see. A lot of people go to church. That's what we call church. Remember, we also see today that the way we call church is not church.
Yeah.
This thing that we do and call it church is not church, because the Spirit already put here in the writing that it doesn't dwell in a temple made with human hand. So if this bricks house is what is called church, I don't think it will make that kind of statement. And I don't also think that the challenge that we are seeing today, we will see. So those are the things. So when you are talking about most of these things, I don't even know where to start from, because first, one need to understand that where we go to sit down and clap and is not church, according to the standard of God.
Church is not a place.
But we men, we call it church. You understand? But we work on church. So anybody that have not come across that should go and also watch it and understand what we talk about church. Because we talk about church to mean that church is the body of the person by whom the advent of the Spirit, Christ, married to. That's why church is the body. Then Christ is the Spirit that headed the church. So you can't have that, and you will not have a perfect life of God seen from such a person. So, but we're talking about born again. You see, when I listen to this and having come to understand what I understand today, it's clear. It's very clear. Because he used the word born again. That word born again is not to any man. That's what he said.
Yes.
That's the voice note.
Yes.
And when you read in the scripture, you see that there is what is called born again. There is also the other process that shows those that will be born of God.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
And born again is the advent of the Spirit in a generation to form God in the midst of a people. So it's the Spirit that is born
in the body.
in a body. But first, the birth of the person, the bodily person, is the first birth of that person.
Yes.
Then the second birth of that person becomes when the
Spirit.
Spirit takes over the body.
Yes.
So born again is now attached to such a person. But when you talk about being born of God, that is where people will come in. That's where we have resurrection. So first, what we know as born again is that when somebody goes to denomination, you have been going there. So the day you take baptism and started changing your ways, it means you have now become a born again Christian.
You start doing different things.
You understand?
Not necessarily
Because one,
change.
you go to church. That's what we call church. You go there. every day, but you may not be a born again. So it means born again is not going to church, but rather giving your life to Christ, as we call it. But where will I start from? First, we human, we do not have life. It is something that you have, that you give to somebody that doesn't have. And the Christ that we are talking about today is the one that says he comes so that we may have life. So it means we do not have life. So sometimes I wonder, where do you get the life that you give to Christ? I don't know why you understand.
Yes.
These are the things that we do. So that's why you wonder why things are not working. It's very clear for me why things are not working.
If you mention it like this to somebody will tell you that what it means to give your life to Christ is to live in accordance to the principle of Christ, which was what I said earlier. I said, if that is what it means to give your life to Christ, where is that Christ who should let you know of those his principles so that you can live after it? Because when you say that giving your life to Christ means living that life, living that life in accordance to his will and principle, and there is no Christ to show you, so you sit down one place and you assume and think that by reading the Bible you can decipher whatever information that has been put in there to know of his ways and his principle. Just as you said, that's why things don't work out well. We talked about what the church is. We have just re-emphasized what it actually means, and now you pointed out also to what we do in the name of church. So you see now that the limitation there is that what the church is meant to serve, as that body carrying that spirit of Christ, it can't serve us because that body is not there. Or even if that body is there, we don't have access to that body. But what have we done? We have established our own church, what we call the human church. We have established our own church, and we think that by doing what we are supposed to do to the person of God in that place, that things should work the way God has intended them to work. That is why things don't work, just as you have said.
Yeah. But the thing is that when you go to give your life to Christ, this thing is very important. When you go to give your life to Christ, it means where you are going to, Christ should be there.
Yeah.
For you to give your life to. If you have a life, you give your life to him. Then he will be the one now that will say, okay, I've received your life. But this one, we never see Christ. You understand?
Yes.
So, but there is nothing like that when it has to do with God. Somebody need to understand that. There is nothing like that. What the program and what the part of the spirit is that, first, he comes down as a spirit, which is he that comes from above, to hold a body to ransom, to establish his presence. That is to be bettered in a generation. First. And now, when that is done, it is the duty of people, the men, who will need to work to resurrect, to now come out from the system in order to listen to what the person needs to tell them. Because when you come to hear from him, you see that as you are following the thing he instructs you, that automatically fulfill that one that he said, come out from among them and be ye separate. And touch not an unclean things. Then will I receive you. You see that it's not you that will receive him. You can't receive Christ. You can't give your life to Christ. That's what I mean.
Yes.
So it is him. Now that first, you need to come out from the system, the world, not follow the world to do what they do, in order for him to now take you as his own, one of his own. But that cannot also take place if he's not there with that standard, with that system that he has come to set. Because first, when that person is around, when that spirit is around, what the spirit comes to do is to establish a standard of living for everyone to follow, which is now what will now make the people to resurrect. Remember, this statement that we just hear today, this explanation that we are hearing, you can see that the reason why he put in that Romans 8:29, that for whom he did foreknow. I would like us to read that so that our viewers can also be aware of that.
Are we there?
Yes.
Okay, and I read
Read from 28.
Romans chapter 8 from 28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren.
Do you see? For somebody to be the firstborn among many brethren, that shows you that nobody has ever born.
Yes.
Because for us, we're there for this world. We don't believe that we don't born now. You understand?
Yeah.
But the birth that the Spirit is talking about is him that counts it. It's not we that will count it.
Yes.
If you even look at the one we do in the church, every day, every Sunday, there are some people that every Sunday they come to give their life to Christ. They give it this Sunday. Before next Sunday, something don't happen. It's like you got born again this Sunday. Before next Sunday,
Backslide, maybe.
you are dead again.
Yes.
That's what it is now. Because when you die, you go back to reborn. Not so.
You revive so that it
So those things, it cannot apply with us. It can't.
And also, to add to what you are saying, there's where you mentioned on the voice note, every child is bettered dead. If you, for those of us that have been in Catholic settings, you should know that the significance of infant baptism is because we believe that every child is being born dead. You carry the sins of your forefathers.
Yes.
So that's why they always advocate for that infant baptism, so that in case peradventure the baby dies, you are sure that okay, he has been cleaned off of those original sins that we all like. I'm talking about the Catholic settings. And it shows that we are all bettered dead, even without
doing anything.
or with that ritual that we do in Catholic Church. That signifies that every man
born dead.
we are bettered dead. But the things we do in a way that shows that we need to come alive, it doesn't follow the principles of God. We do it on our own human understanding and believe that that's how it should be. And that if you watch closely, you see that it's not yielding any purpose.
Lasting solution, yes.
Any solution. We will still go back to the same activities that he has already condemned us to get involved with. So what's the essence of being baptized? When after baptism you now go back to that same activities that he has already.
So it's not even about going back to the activities, because it's the nature of man that drives his activities. So if the baptism, the way we do it, is to serve a purpose, or it served its purpose, then our activities shouldn't drag us back to that state of death that we were in before baptism.
Yes.
But it's because the baptism didn't do anything.
Yes.
That is why the activities we carry on after the baptism still shows that nothing was done.
These are the things that we are talking about today, because when God is bettered in a generation, the first work that God does is to come to correct the people. And that is what is called baptism. It's bring a voice where it's going to voice out for you, show you those principles that you need to follow, to wash you. Because baptism, the significance of baptism is to wash you that old life away, to give space for the new spirit to come in. So that is the work of baptism. It's inward change. And water can't do that. But what does it is that the word of God, which is coming from that source of, he called John the Baptist, and that cannot be another person. It's the advent of that spirit in that body of that person that come to restore things first. That is to prepare the way before the spirit can access any man. The way that is coming to prepare is not that it's coming to prepare one way for one other Christ to born somewhere. No. The person come to prepare this, the first one, because the Christ is supposed to be bettered again or bettered in you, come alive in you, having born in a generation. So the voice of that person come to give you an instruction that when you follow, you give way. That is, he prepare you to give a way for that spirit to come in. So when you hear he's coming to prepare the way, it's not that there's one way that he want to prepare. He just work on you to give access for that spirit to dwell in. Because without that, it cannot work.
Okay. Like when he made that statement of I am the way. There's no which other way is he talking about when somebody makes that kind of statement. I am the way. Meaning that my lifestyle is the way to live. Mm-hmm. That is the way to live. Now, this lifestyle is a lifestyle you do not know about, because the lifestyle you were born to, we were all born to see, is the lifestyle of man.
Yeah.
So the life, that's why when we talk about baptism, we talk about being born again, these are spiritual significance that only the one who is from heaven can implement. These things are not what men can carry. You carry the Bible, whether you profess to be a pastor or evangelist, you carry the Bible. It's not what a man can do. That is why no matter how you profess to be born again, no matter how you profess to be a clergyman, you see that the results, the solution, divine solution that is supposed to be seen in our world is not seen because of who has been doing the work.
You're not even supposed to see it in the world. Supposed to see it in you. Because let's not use the word first.
When men,
you are changed,
we are the reflection of the world.
When the change is there in you, and is there in this person, is there in this person, you see that the society will change. Yes. So it's not just coming to speak to a world is a man. It's not the universe. Yes. You understand? But I'm only bringing this in. The thing is that all these things we don't know. That's why we keep saying that the Bible that we carry is not a story book. It is a writing about the personality, that spirit, and who the spirit will come to establish and begin that work. It's not a story event. When you read that John, from that John 1:1, you can see the birth of God in John 1:1, where the spirit, the word, come into a generation to begin a work. And when you go to from 12:13, you see where those that will receive him
shall give them power.
Those that will receive him will now be the one now that will be born of God.
Yes.
But when you read this John, you see that from John 1:1 is the birth of God in a generation. And you get to
12.
From 12, when he said, as many as I receive him, because first he already birthed. He's already born in a generation. But we can tag him whatever name that we know. Jesus Christ, this and that. But we are saying that whether we call him Jesus Christ or not, the advent of that spirit, that word, to a body of a person in any generation. And when we use the generation, we try to use the language that we men can understand.
Familiar with.
You understand? But a generation is the word.
The
Technique. Any technique that the spirit uses is to bring something to pass, to bring it to come, that thing that you read, bring it in fulfillment. And in the fulfillment of the spiritual work, a body must be provided for the world to dwell in. We have said here, the reason why we go to men that we call men of God is because we believe that that word, that spirit is in them.
Yes. So based on the born again issue that we talked about as men, so I just want to give some, call it a reference or an illustration based on that. Because we as men, we believe, we talked about as we do in the denomination, give our life to Christ. And we believe that Christ is a spirit we cannot see as men. Yeah. You understand? So since we cannot see Christ, is to go and do it wherever we see that is suitable for us to do it, which is where Christ is. And we also believe that since Christ is a spirit, is everywhere. That's what we believe. So if actually we believe that Christ is everywhere, that spirit is everywhere, why do we go to that denomination? Not staying anywhere, maybe stay in our house.
It's just an our assumption because Christ can never be everywhere.
Yes, to show that that Christ has to be seen. Because if it's something that you can do anyhow, anywhere, you shouldn't go to a place. Why did you go there? Why did we go there? We go there because we believe that it should be somewhere. But unfortunately, that place we go to, because it's not we that will carry Christ and go and put there. It's where Christ is. That's where we should go to. But this one is we that design where we say Christ should be. After knowing that, we believe that it's everywhere. So you actually see that this born again of a thing is not our thing. It's not what we know to do. We can't do it. So it's reserved for the one who has to come, because we didn't know before. Now the information has come to let us know that those things we were doing, we don't have idea about them. So it's high time to know what is our part to play, which is in the aspect of resurrection that we talked about, that Christ has to be risen. We believe that Christ raised from the dead. Not knowing that the dead that Christ has to raise from, it has to be us. That spirit cannot die. I don't know whether you understand. No. That spirit cannot die. So it's us, which is men, that we better dead. Yes. So that spirit has to come alive. That's the purpose. That spirit has to come alive in us, which is now our duty to locate where this person is. This body, the Christ, has to be seen.
As carrying this.
Yes, carrying the spirit.
Let me come from that side that what you are trying to bring in now, because listening to that voice note, let me not use the word following, listening to the voice note, he has explained how the born again apply.
Yes.
That first, the birth of the person of God is a vessel without sin.
Yes.
But at that moment, the spirit has not abided yet. But there's a mystery about the body. But the body grows up to a point that the spirit will now gain access to begin the work of serving humanity or correcting men. That is where he attacked the born again. So the first birth of the body is without the word. Then the second birth, which is now born again, is when the word now takes over the body to fulfill that born again.
Yes.
You can see why he said in that John, why is the record in that John 3? I think John 3:3. When Nicodemus was asking, how can a man be born again? And he said, verily, verily, I said unto you, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. Is to see first. You know, when you can see into the things of God, that is where people can get a proper guide. You understand?
And direction. Yes.
And direction. Because if you cannot see, you can't know how to walk. The challenge we have today is because men can't see into the spiritual things. It is the birth of that spirit in the person that make the person, that bring that eye of the spirit to the person, before any man now can walk to enter. I don't know whether you are following what I'm trying to. So the voice note show that birth of that person, and where the spirit now birthed in the person. And now let us to know that when that is done, that is the only person that is born. But we as a people, that we were better dead, we were not even born, that they can't use the word born. Yes. From everything we have been shown, we are not born yet. So, but because of lack of words, yes, is the reason why one can say when a child is born, yeah, but that we are dead. And it shows in everything we are doing. It shows. So now he said is restoration that all of us need.
Because we were
that
all born dead.
That really truly fulfill everything that I myself, even in the denomination that we were taught. Because they used to tell us that resurrection is what we need.
You need to come alive.
We need to come alive. But when they say that, they now assume the resurrection to be when you die and go to grave. At the last day, that's when you come back from the grave. But I also believe that there are also people out there who understand that resurrection is not coming out from the grave. But this thing that we are talking about today, you understand? But those ones that have that understanding, they can't make it work outside the person of that spirit. So right now, what can we do? How does this thing apply that can now bring us to get this restoration?
Come alive.
I'm only bringing this as a question so that we can also deliberate on this for somebody out there to hear it. How do we come in to get this life?
The voice note tried to explain that, well, though not in the largest of details, but it was clear enough. He tried to explain what it focused on was that term born again has no business with man.
Yeah.
And explain that it relates to God, which we have all still tried to concur with in our various ways. We have tried to concur that that's what it actually means and
The birth of God in a generation.
and represents. So it's the birth of that person of God in our generation or on our world that begins the work of salvation, just as you said.
Yeah.
So if we are to give our lives to Christ, and we have said that giving our life to Christ means living the way Christ expects us to live. That's what it means to give your life to Christ. That is how we as men get to achieve resurrection. Because now there is that person who is on ground, whom we have to access to show us what we need to do, how we need to do it in order for his spirit, just as you said, he is on ground to make way in us for that spirit to come in.
Yes.
So that's what resurrection implies. That we do our bit for that spirit which is of Christ to come in us, so we have the life that is of God.
Yes.
Because from the voice notes, and just as Brother Kufre said, as men, our birth is in death. Why God, his birth is being born, is in life.
Yes.
So because our birth is in death, that's why our outcome is what we see as death, what we have described as death. Though the voice note pointed out that that's
Sleep.
that's a state of sleep as a result of the dead nature of man. So the spirit which is of God, or that body that would carry that word, is born. And he described what it means to be born.
So he truly showed that a man that is dead is not to born again. I mean, he's not to
Yes.
born again.
Yes.
But rather to come back to life.
Resurrect.
You understand?
Yes.
It's clear. Because if you are dead, it means you need to come back to life. If we call it resurrection from the grave, somebody that is in the grave need to resurrect, if that's what it is. But because this death is not to the grave,
Yes.
that's why it's resurrection, because from the grave is rising again.
Yes.
You see?
I even think
Even is written in the scripture.
yeah, I think for anyone who is watching this now and is a little bit lost, I think you should visit our channel and watch
resurrection.
the episode we had on resurrection, to clear up any misconception or confusion he might have because of how this particular episode is centered around
Born again.
being born again.
Yeah.
So Camille, you were saying something.
No, it was making reference about rising from dead and resurrection.
Okay, yeah,
It's written.
even okay. You were saying it was written in the in the scripture. The reference was there. I think in the case of Lazarus.
Yeah.
He said that he sleepeth, and everybody was laughing or murmuring. That's because they didn't understand what he meant. And if you read carefully, when he got to the tomb, he didn't say resurrect. He said come forth. That's because in that state of sleep, which is the result of death, we can't resurrect.
And when you even use that word was when Martha was asking if you were here. My brother had not died. But I know that as long as you are here, whatever thing you ask of your God,
Of your
he will
father.
do it. He will do it for you. And he straightly said to her, if he was her, your brother shall rise again.
Okay.
That's what the word he
Yes,
used.
because he slept.
Martha said, I know that my brother shall rise again at the resurrection, at the last day, which is the same mentality all of us has today. And if you read the response, if it was something that somebody was there, you could see that he was angry. Because the response was, I am the resurrection. You understand? So which of the last day are you talking about? Because as I'm here, this is your last day. That's what he's saying. I am the resurrection and the life. And he went on to say, whosoever believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth shall never die.
Yes.
Believe
And
that.
if you follow these things, you could see why that statement was there. Because one, you were dead already
There was no
in
life.
that state of sin. So the advent of him there and the Spirit, as he speaks to you, you listen to him and follow what you come alive. But that life that you come alive does not mean that you have the life that will stay forever.
No.
That's why he said, whosoever continue and believe, because the belief is into the action, will never die.
Yes.
Are you seeing it?
Yes.
So those are how those things apply. It's not something that you just snap finger and the thing will happen.
Yes.
The pattern and the program that bring life to a man is a process. And there is no other process can be achieved when God is not in the midst of a people.
Yes.
That's why he come, as we read in Malachi 3, the last time. We started from 1, when he talks about when the Spirit appear, how he's going to purge the sons of Levi, because he will sit as a meal to purify them in order to bring back that state, because no man can wash himself for God.
Yeah.
No man can clean himself for God. That's why God is the one that will come first without the spirit of Elijah to clean the people, prepare the people. That is what everybody need to understand, because if we lost, like we keep losing down, go to the denomination and walk around men and think that men can walk, make us, or maybe tell us to go and read Bible and follow the instruction of the Bible, and we will have the Christ in us. It doesn't work that way.
You see why
doesn't.
we actually talked about the concept of the Spirit of God, that it is only him that has to come and show us these things. We, before now, as men, we see resurrection to be Christ. We even celebrated it. Like it's Christ that died and resurrected and, went to whatever.
Yeah.
But listening to what it is, what resurrection is us that were dead, or we are still dead until that Spirit, which he cannot die, risen in us. That's rest from us. That's what resurrection represents.
Yeah.
So resurrection is not that thing we do. We celebrate the day that like Easter. That's what we do as men, which it has nothing to do with us. You understand? The way we do it has nothing to do with us. It has something to do with history, story. That personality we talked about cannot die. It is us that we are dying and we are burying, and we can't even come alive. Because that aspect we even celebrate is supposed to be something that reflects our lifestyle, but it does not. So resurrection in God, which is his concept, is that the life we are living is not his life, and that's why we are dying. So the Spirit, which is the God now, has to be born in our midst in order to guide us, for us to come out from that dead state of man, in order to have his life being revived, redeemed. You understand? In us. That's what resurrection really stands for. It's not the other way around.
Somebody may listen to us now and say, how can you say God is born? Based on the way we know God to be.
But it has
Do you
to be
understand?
so. Yes.
There are people watching us that may say, how can you say God is born? How
Who
can
has
God
been
born?
there before now?
God born. But you see, these are how these things apply, and somebody need to understand that, because you can't change the fact that God as a spirit would be bettered in the world.
Yes. For
In
God
the
to
first
be with
before
us,
he
that
can
was
guide the people.
yes.
So this is how this thing apply. Nobody should get confused and think that because God there for one place like that. That's why we say God is not in the sky. It means God will be born in the midst of a people before he can show the people his own way. His own way. It's not our way that we will use to please him. It is his way that we will use to please him. That's what everybody need to understand.
And even sorry, let me just also add something based on what you just mentioned. That somebody will be confused and say, how can you say God will be born as a person? But even in the Bible, we carry and think that this is how it is. Even in that Bible that we see that for God to be with the people, a child has to be born, which we also celebrated as Christmas, that Christ, being God, is born in our midst as a picture painted. So it also shows the person, whosoever you may be, that God has to be in a bodily form. God has to born as a body in order for us to have God with us. There's no way you can have God with us and it's a breeze.
And if you watch, even if you believe it or you don't believe it, it will not change
Because
anything.
it's help.
Is already is there. So your belief will not change that because I don't believe that is not how it's supposed to be.
So it's just to put it for somebody to have help, because
Yes.
God is help. So it's not to just do anyhow and lose it. So that's why we are saying what we are saying today.
Okay, so basically what we have been trying to say from the beginning, then the voice note, and all we have said after the voice note is that the term born again does not apply to man. It applies to God. And we have no business asking around if anybody is born again. Though what we have in mind when we ask if someone is born again is just as we said, have you given your life to Christ? As are you living a kind of life that follows after the principle of God? But at the same time, we are saying that it has no business to do with man. That the business that we as men have is as it relates to resurrection. And the only way we can have that resurrection work for us is to still have that God who has to be born again in our midst for us to get to know what we need to do and how we need to do it in order to achieve resurrection that would remove us from that state of death to the state of life, which is of God. So that's basically all what this talk has been for, to arrive at this conclusion that we need to get our minds, our heads, and everything away from what we have come to know as men, or we have come to embrace as men, and have it at the back of our minds that there is always something great that we don't know.
Yeah.
That no matter what we think we know, there is something that we don't know. And in that thing which we think we know, we don't know everything in it. So whatever way we are doing what we are doing, we should have it at the back of our mind that it's subject to change once God arrives. That's why we are all crying for God, pleading and begging. Some of us pray for his arrival, because the arrival of God is to change things, not to make things different for us in the sense that things become more favorable, but to change things, to make sure that our state as men is removed or replaced rather with the state of life, which is of God.
And everything we are talking today, even with the one that the voice note is putting out for us, they are all in the Bible here. They are not a story thing. These things are their significance are here. But the thing is that because we don't have an idea about the spiritual things, that's why it's hard for us. And we are not here to be pointing them out. If we want to be pointing on everything that we are discussing here, they are here.
So we shouldn't be deceived because he put there, a man shall be born again. That's also, he also said that you should marvel not. Because
if you want to go to read it, when you read it, you see why he said, marvel not at this.
Yes.
Because it's not your work. That's what he's saying. So let's leave that one.
It's not your thing.
The question, are you born again? A statement was made in the voice note that it's not a man question, it's not a man thing. Because one, the man who is asking that question is not the owner of heaven. It's like, do you want to enter here? So he is not the owner of heaven. He said, are you born again?
Every time we
In
ask
order
that
for you
question,
to enter heaven.
all of us, anytime you ask somebody that question, you see yourself as if you are following the way of God. Because of that, our self-righteousness.
Yeah.
So let's leave that statement. That one is not be our statement. If you follow that statement, every of us that ask that question, none of us that our ways are following the ways of that Christ.
So the only one
I don't want to go there.
To ask that question
Is
is the
not
one
to
who
ask
can.
any man.
Yes.
Didn't you hear that? It's not a question that how is it even a question, self? I beg you.
Because he put there that the man should born again, except a man be born again. So that way it seems like everybody should born again. It say a man should born again. We are men.
I'm asking. How is it even a question? I mean, how is it?
For another person to ask.
How did we arrive?
How did it become a question?
Yeah, how did we arrive on
how did
this?
it become a
Asking
question?
that as a
Because
question.
you just heard now that it relates to God, or it applies to God. God is not coming to ask you if
Are you born again?
if you are born again. You can't stand in the opposite direction to ask him if he is born again. So I don't know where that
Now show.
where that
We
came
our life
about.
now show.
He
But-
wants to see what woman is.
Anyway,
So
I'm
that's
telling you, our life now show.
the idea he wants to
Anyway,
We love preaching God. We love talking about God with mouth. But when it comes to action, the practical side, we are not following it. That's why I say everybody that asks that question, check their life, check their living. None of the things that we do that connect to the way that the Christ is following.
That's why
None.
God is the way. So
I'm
he's
saying
coming
this to
show
somebody
us.
out there so that the person will know that what we are talking here is serious. We are talking about a practical life we're supposed to be living today.
So he's
You
coming.
see, sometimes I feel like being read because
It should.
this is what is killing us. And we can't do that. That is why we say you can't have it done when God is not there.
Yes.
To show you that all of us have been involved in this same wahala. It's just the advent of the spirit that we are seeing today, and we are trying to let everybody to understand that. Forget about the time that we spend here. You can spend your data, wait and make sure you watch to the end. Anytime you come across our videos, so that you understand what we are talking about, because sometimes now the end part of it, now there we they show our side of maybe like we are not happy with the situation. Because for me, I for say I'm not happy with the situation because people are dying, things are happening. Yes, the spirit know that. But when we walk fast, he restore things the way he planned to restore them. But when we continue following men and continue doing the wrong thing, things will be happening before you know it don't reach many of us. And I don't wish that for anybody. I don't even wish for myself. So anybody out there should understand that this is a movement. Whether you be Christian, whether you be Hindu, this is a movement. Look into this movement. Find out what is this thing all about, because we have 100. Okay, let's say maybe now just one issue we are raising here. 99 is pending. We are not bringing 99 here. It's just one issue first to let everybody to know that God that we cry for, that we weep for, must be with us, and that God is in our midst. So let's find him. That is the only moment that why we keep having this moment. So I don't know.
okay, so it's looking like we would call it a wrap on this episode before Brother Kufre turns green. Say he's ready, wants to turn. Okay, so I would advise any of you watching us to kindly send us an email if you need clarity or you need
Inquiries.
you need answers, because Kufre said that it's time to make a movement. So the question is like, what kind of movement is it? So if you have questions, you have inquiries, kindly send us an email via the addresses on your screen, and I'll be sure to get back to you. So on that note, to say bye for now till we come your way next time.